Sup guys? I've got some more theory crafting to share today regarding the Rodney meta fight. First, I'm going to explain why I'm no longer using Haku, at least for now. On screen is the fleet I'm currently using, and in this run, I one-shot the boss with 2 radar scans. The run after this is the same fleet, but I only got 1 radar scan and the boss lived with just 3 bars of HP. Just a disclaimer though, not all runs with 1 scan get that close to killing the boss. I'm using that new auxiliary that has a chance to buff this fleet by 4% to all stats, and it rolled that effect in that run, which resulted in a pretty significant increase in total damage. Without the buff, it leaves around 10 bars with just 1 radar scan. In this fight, carriers with high enough reload to get off 4 airstrikes also have very good timing when it comes to striking the boss while it's stationary. These ships don't need any kind of slows to make sure everything lands. I believe the only ships capable of getting 4 airstrikes in, while at the same time still dealing respectable damage, are Ark Royal and Chkalov, unless there is someone I'm missing. Also, the 4 airstrikes can't be done with preemptive strikes like the Foxes or Impero, because they have different timings which would result in striking when the boss is moving. Between Chkalov and Ark has a 25% chance to activate skill, while Chkalov has an 80% chance to activate skill, which still does something when it fails, so I went with Chkalov. Since you're forced to desync in this fight, there will be 1 carrier that is quite significantly slower than Chkalov, and strike 2 out of 3 times when Rodney is moving around. I was using Haku before for this role, just for the raw damage, but she would whiff often enough that I decided to explore some other possible strategies. And by that, I mean I just replaced her with Implacable. It's not exactly rocket science to use Implacable when the boss is moving around. I found that the consistency you get from Implacable ended up being worth it over the loss in raw damage. So, that just leaves 1 spot in the main fleet for a damage dealer. I've tried using both Shinano and Haku with essentially the same cooldown in this fleet, and the difference is extremely noticeable. With Shinano, there is a pretty good chance to one-shot at just 2 radar scans, but with Haku, I couldn't get a one-shot even with 3 radar scans. Don't let people gaslight you into believing that Shinano is weaker than Haku. If you can satisfy her 3 IGN requirement and your Vanguard isn't dead weight in terms of damage output, Shinano should still be the superior option if you had to choose just one of the 2. And you don't have to take my word for it. Just try using Shinano without Haku, and then try using Haku without Shinano. Haku is even at more of a disadvantage against Rodney because her lightning barrages are randomly targeted and often will just not target the boss. It also doesn't help that your other carriers can't take full advantage of her debuff, even if the lightning strike decides to target the boss because they're not synced together, while Shinano's debuffs are permanently applied and target the actual boss. In the Vanguard, I'm using Helena, which ends up one-shotting the boss more often than no Helena comps, despite no Helena being possible as well. Most setups I've seen use SG radar on her, but I found no SG to be better. Looking at the fleet I'm using, with just the vanilla radar scan timings, only Implacable and Chkalov's last airstrikes sit outside of radar scan's windows. With SG though, all 3 of Implacable's airstrikes would be too late for the scan, and you're rolling for 4 procs rather than 3, so I don't really see any reason to use SG. On Unzen, I am currently testing out the USS Gearlab torps. Early on, I tried using the HMS straight torps on Shimakaze, because I noticed that the boss stays still for the most part when torps are fired. After getting a pretty lucky run where Shimakaze hit over 300k on auto with the straight torps, I noticed a problem with them. While they do aim at a target, the aiming only dictates the direction in which they fire, so if the ship is moving vertically at all while the torps are being fired, they end up missing quite easily. You'll see what I mean if you just try using them for yourself. However, with the USS torps, there is just a slight homing effect, and it seems to be enough to make them hit relatively frequently. I'll need bigger sample sizes to see if they're actually worth using over quad megs, but for now they seem promising. If you're using Nagato though, the 20% reload buff gives Unzen just enough reload to barely squeeze in a last salvo with quad mags. The USS Torps are just a tiny bit slower, so they might not be able to get off that last salvo with Nagato, in which case quad mags are likely to be better. If you're not using Nagato or any other reload buff which allows for an extra salvo of quad mags, then the USS Torps have a better chance of being stronger than quad mags. Speaking of Nagato, I noticed that when you use a battleship with 2 carriers, there's a higher chance of your carriers being spotted than with 3 carriers. This can lead to situations like this, where the Vanguard high rolls 558 damage in total, but because Shinano got revealed and Nagato shit the bed, the main fleet dealt less total damage than the Vanguard and the boss was able to survive, which is another reason I'm playing around with carrier fleets now. I don't think I've so-called solved this fight by any means, and there's no doubt going to be even better strategies as people keep testing more setups. But I thought I would just update you guys with the stuff I found between the last Rodney meta video until now. Anyway, that's it for this video. Thanks for watching and see you in the next one.